entrepreneur who's driving a multi-billion-dollar retail empire while trying to redefine the world of fashion.
I've probably done every job imaginable, from having like a paper route when I was 12 to working in a deli to working in shops.
Our next guest is the definition of a self-made female entrepreneur.
What I say to people is be excellent at where you're at whatever you're doing, because that starts to set the tone and people notice.
Grede is one of America's richest self-made women, according to Forbes. She is co-founder and CEO of the clothing brand Good American and a founding partner in Kim Kardashian's Skims.
What does it mean to be a woman today? How can we do something that, so much of fashion feels exclusive and like it's only for a certain group? And how can we do something that's truly inclusive?
I'm going to talk to the most successful people on the planet and the foremost experts who will share how to master the skills, both practical and emotional. Now, every year on my birthday, I start afresh. I spend weeks refining a plan for my personal life, career, for my health, for everything, with the same level of detail most people reserve for running a business. Because I really believe that my life deserves that. And I think yours does too.
Good morning, everyone. I am Chineo Gwamake, a two-time WNBA All-Star and ESPN analyst. And most importantly, we back, y'all, we back. I am so thrilled. When the Washington Post asked if I'd come back this time to moderate a conversation, it was the quickest yes I ever said, because this summit, the Global Women's Summit, is truly transformational. And I am thrilled to be here alongside an unstoppable innovator, Grede.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, as you all know, I'm a sports girly, so I love dramatic intros, so let's do this thing.
You mean we haven't done the dramatic
No,
intro
we haven't. We have not. Co-founder and CEO of Good American, the first inclusive fashion brand to bring body diversity to the mainstream, founding partner of Skims, architect behind billion-dollar companies, Forbes list, as you heard, of America's richest self-made women, and she inspires us to aspire. Grede.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the Washington Post Global Women's Summit. We just saw a little bit of your background, and I thought it was funny because you started off the conversation with like making Sammys and sandwiches. And following some of your videos, you said something that I've said in the past. I fell into basketball and fell in love with it. You fell into entrepreneurialism. But again, it started with making sandwiches or maybe low-level positions in fashion. Can you sort of describe how those roles in your origin story built the woman you are today?
Well, I love that you start there, because I think that there is so much said about this idea of being an overnight success. People imagine that I just woke up one day and fell onto that list. And the truth of the matter is that I've had a job since I was 12 years old. I delivered the papers, I worked in a deli, I then worked in stores. It's like I've done all the jobs. And when I figured out that I wanted to be in fashion, you have to work from the ground up. You're in a cupboard, you're delivering the clothes, you're doing the clippings from the press. And I learned on the way up what it would mean that if I wanted to be truly successful, I would need to understand all the facets of the industry. And so I like to be really honest about the journey and what it takes to actually be successful. And in my experience, there's no such thing as an overnight success. There's no such thing as someone who hasn't, built the relationships and done the difficult stuff that it means, that it takes to be successful. And so I'm very happy to kind of demystify some of the kind of outward-facing, Instagrammable way of like being successful, right?
The microwavable way of being successful. You know what's kind of funny? Because you use the word I learned a lot, but ironically, you discovered at a young age that maybe the advanced levels of education in school wasn't for you, largely because you suffered from a severe form of dyslexia.
Severe.
how did that impact your growth as an adolescent? And I know you also were like the oldest child and you had to take care of your siblings. So that combination, how did that shape you?
Well, you know, I was raised by a single mother that went out to work every single day, and I'm the eldest of 4 kids. And when you're the eldest, you know, you do a lot. You do the most. I did the parent-teacher conferences, you know, I'd take my sisters to school, and quite honestly, by the time it got to like 9 o'clock, I was turning around and coming home to watch Oprah. I was like, I'm exhausted, you know? So school wasn't my strong point. And then you coupled that with the dyslexia, and I was undiagnosed until I was in my early 20s. And let me tell you, I've just written a book. It's out next April. It will be called Start With Yourself. So I'm very excited about that. But even in the process of writing the book, that's where my learning difficulties came really, you know, front and center. And you're confronted with these things that perhaps you haven't fully dealt with. But for me, what I learned, and I believe what one of my superpowers is that I can get through anything. I will find the workaround. And actually, I have an insatiable appetite for learning. And I think that one of the things that I try to do every year is figure out, like, how am I creating like a new thing? How am I creating some place and space in my life where I can learn something new? And that has been, I think it's been one of the things that has helped me be successful, that I am constantly pushing into this uncomfortability, into the fear, into the guilt. And I think that as a woman, we have to be really honest about that stuff. And so I try to talk a lot about it. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't have any fear. It means that I actually look for it. I like to look at the edges of what's possible for me as an individual, as a woman, as a learner. And I like to operate there because that's where all the good stuff happens.
You know why I love you? Because you speak in basketball coach language, right? Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Shoot your shot. You never know if you'll make it. Like, that's your same mentality, and it transfers no matter what industry.
I'm glad it's the mentality, because I'm a horrible sportswoman. I have zero talent. Zero talent.
I got you on that. I got you on that. I got you on that. But you know, one thing that you have said that is profound, I experienced, but I'm trying to reshape. This concept around imposter syndrome. Oftentimes when you are young and you're shooting for a new position, starting your own company, building your own business, trying out for a new team, you feel like, oh man, you look to your left, you look to your right. For me, it's Hall of Famers, it's icons. I was gonna cuss, but I don't even cuss. Like, y'all, my sister's an MVP, and I'm like, how am I gonna chase that, right? But you have this imposter syndrome, like, do I belong? But then I started thinking, as I've gotten older, that other people don't have that type of mechanism in their brain. They feel entitled to be there, even in some ways, men. So can you sort of unpack why women should not feel like we are imposters in our environments?
Well, the first thing that I think you have to really think about is, if not you, then who? You know, when you're raised by a single mum, you know, my mum raised me in the way where, you know, she really taught me that I wasn't better than anyone else, but nor was anyone better than me. And so I went into situations truly believing that if I came into the room and I gave my best and I worked really hard, let's not uncouple those things, because you can't manifest your way into this stuff despite what they tell you. But if you work really, really, really hard, that anything is possible. And I really believe that. I've sat in some incredible rooms next to brilliant people. And of course, you know, I left school way before I should have, you know, before my 16th birthday. But for me, I have a belief in myself, but I like to couple that belief with unbelievably hard work and being excellent. And I talk about that all the time because I really think that that's the cornerstone of everything that I've learned throughout my career. I have coupled like extraordinary effort, and that's why I've had extraordinary outcomes. And so there is no 3-day week for me. There is no like work from home for me. There is no part-time in anything I do. I put everything in, and that's why I get the maximum out.
And for those who may not be as familiar with your story, back from East London or trying to make a global imprint so young and so early in your 20s, can you describe your entertainment, your talent agency, and what you learned along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career in a really interesting way. I was obsessed with fashion and trying to find the money in fashion. You know, I was a poor kid. I needed to eat. And so I tried to figure out, like, how can I make ends meet here? And I found myself in this really interesting space of partnerships, putting brands together with fashion designers and artists. And by the time I was 24, I had started my first company. The tide had kind of changed and shifted, and I had started putting brands together with talent in the most traditional way. So if you see Natalie Portman in a campaign for Dior, for example, I would broker those partnerships. And so I was the middleman, running around trying to figure out how Hollywood and, whatever brand could work together. And I created a real brand around doing that. I was the go-to person in fashion, beauty, lifestyle that you would come to do those types of partnerships. I spent 10 years doing that before I successfully exited that company. And it was just as talent started to take equity positions in brands. And of course, I decided that I needed a piece of the action because I'd made so many brands so much money and created so much value, of which I was only getting a piece, that consultancy slither. And as any frustrated consultant will tell you, you're like, well, that was my idea. I should have had the whole thing. I can't believe that. So I decided that I would start a brand for myself, and Good American was born.
And I like how you sectioned it into decades. You said 10 years. I want to start with those first entrepreneurial chapter and maybe discuss first the peak. So what was the peak of you at the age of 23, 24, 25? What was the moment where like, yes, this is me. I've reached my destiny. I have arrived?
Well, I love that question because there was just no such moment. The truth of it is, I wish there was, but again, one great relationship leads to this other fantastic deal, and you never arrive. And of course, as you start working, your ambition increases, right? Everything that you thought, I thought, oh my goodness, if I get to the point where I can hire an assistant for myself, I'd have made it. And then you're like, oh, 1 second, I don't want 30 people, I need an agency with 60 people. Oh, and by the way, we need to open an office in New York because you don't exist in marketing unless you're in New York. And then LA, and I opened an office in LA, and I failed miserably, by the way. That's another thing I love to talk about, is all the failure that I've had. Because again, if you're not failing, then you're really not in business. You're really not you're not pushing where, when I talk about those edges. But the point is you have to fail. You learn from those failures. And of course, when I came back to LA 10 years later to start Good American, I didn't do any of those same mistakes. I had a different appreciation for the business, for the culture of the place, and I came in a different way. But I do honestly think that my career is testament to having tried a lot of different things and holding a real vision for myself. And I've been unapologetic about my ambition. And what I talk about in my book a lot is that we have to hold a vision for ourselves. We have to have a set of principles that guide us. And I think because of where I come from, because I came from East London, those principles were really so much a part of who I am that has really set me up for success.
And I love your answer because it's so raw and it's so real, because when I imagined myself getting drafted #1, you're like, oh, this is a great moment, but it's fleeting. Because I always tell people, they're like, what do you want to do? What's your ambitions for your career? And I say, honestly, I just want to see how far my God-given talents can go. I don't know where that lands, but I just want to make him, my family, my people proud. And I feel like that's that inner grit that you're describing. But, I know you may be, you may not want to talk too much about the peaks, but you will talk about the valleys. And one thing I'm really inspired by you is that you're not afraid to do something while you're scared. It's almost like being scared is a benefit. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I think that you have to, again, as a woman, there's so much that I think is in us that leads us to fear, And again, I think we don't have the right conversations about money, for an example. When I first went out to raise finance, I had no idea what really even raising capital meant. I'd never been in a room where anyone had discussed that. And I didn't have the language, and I didn't really know how to structure it. And so I just started asking questions, and I realized that if you can get out of your own way and be willing to say, I don't know what that means, I am not following, I just started asking a lot of questions. And people love to tell you what you don't know. And I was like, go ahead, listening to whatever wonderful guy wanted to tell me everything that I didn't know. And so, but you start to absorb, and so I think one of the things that's been really helpful to me is learning that I don't need to be everything. As the CEO of the business, I don't need to be the best in finance. I don't need to fully understand logistics. I don't need to be the expert in everything. I need to lean into what my strengths are and then find great people to do everything else. And again, that's the fear of not knowing anything not knowing everything will really hold you back. Instead, I'm like, lean into that and find the other people and do what you're uniquely great at.
Yeah, you're not afraid of being afraid. And similarly, I think in athletes in sports and basketball, for me, one thing I tell people is that on the other side of fear is freedom. Because I learned from a vet, an all-time great, that when you're out there and you're shooting the ball, it takes a certain level of vulnerability to be great. To know that all the eyes are on you and you're gonna still shoot that shot, because that miss teaches you how to make it. And I do think that you've done that entirely with your career. So in this first chapter, these first 10 years of you as an entrepreneur, as a young woman, what was the scariest thing you had to get over in order to succeed?
You know, if I'm really honest, I think it would be my idea of what it meant to be a leader, because there's certain expectations placed on women that are not there for men, meaning that, you know, you need to treat your team as a family and, you know, everybody needs to love you, you need to be extremely likable, and that doesn't work when you're growing a business. You know, my experience is that not everybody's gonna love you, and you need to get real comfortable with that really quickly. Now, what I wanna say is that it doesn't mean that you can't lead with empathy. It doesn't mean that you can't come with all the brilliant things that female energy brings to leadership. But it does mean that you have to be honest with yourself about what it takes. And again, that's why I talk about having a very specific and clear vision for yourself in the same way that you would with a company. And so I've just had to get really sharp on that stuff. And I've learned that sometimes what comes naturally to me isn't what's going to get me where I want to be. And that's why I talk about in my book so much about controlling your emotions. In the same way that you have to, you know, come to terms with your childhood or things that have happened to you, you need to get really, really clear about what you have in your, you know, inside you that's holding you back. And if you're honest about it, there'll be a lot. And so again, I'm a mother of 4, and so when I had my first kids, I really had to decide, like, what kind of mum do I want to be? Well, I want to be the kind of mum that continues her career, because I worked so hard to get to where I am. And so being a mum of 4 comes with me figuring out, or like, what's right for that piece of my life and what's right for this piece of my life, and getting super, super sharp on that. But it doesn't mean that because I have 4 kids, I'm willing to go, well, you know, chapter 1's over then. It's like, absolutely not. I have to find a new way to exist. I have to find new rules and new ways to exist as a mother who happens to be extremely ambitious.
And you're also a mother who has championed people, causes, you know, ideas that are necessary. And that leads to our journey to Good American in chapter 2 today. And I love this part because I always say, like, spill the tea, sis, because I know you've told this story multiple times, but you cold called Kris Jenner and you were trying to shoot your shot at working with her daughter. How do you sort of calculate a risk versus doing a little too much, knowing how to negotiate? Oh, hey, when are you next in LA? You're going quarterly, but you say, I'm actually there next week. Creating these opportunities, knowing the upside is great, but also not trying to overextend yourself.
Well, the truth is, you know, I didn't cold call. I actually had an unbelievable reputation at creating these partnerships at the intersection of entertainment and the brand world. And so when you have that, you can call anyone with legitimacy. And I think that everything that I've done in my career has been about leveraging what came before it. And so when you don't have anything, all you have is yourself. There's a great quote, and I can't even remember who said it, but he said, when you don't know what to pursue yourself. And so my life has been exactly like that. And so I have lent on the only thing that I had, which was my reputation and my ability to self-promote. And so when I called someone, they would take my call seriously because I had this reputation of delivering excellence over and over again. And that's what I've been able to do. I've been able to take what it is that I know and leverage it into the next thing. And so, you know, while I think about Good American as being this amazing moment in time, I was able to do that because I fundamentally understood that there was a white space in fashion where women of certain sizes, on the ends of the size spectrum, women that are 6'2" and want to find a great pair of jeans, they were being largely ignored by retailers everywhere. And when you walk around the malls, there's a reason it's really busy in shoes and beauty, because there's nothing for anyone above a size 12, 14, 16 to buy. And so for me, it wasn't like I was doing some, you know, great service to society. I was like, here's a white space. I'm going to lean into that. And I'm going to make a big point about why it's great business. And so I don't feel like I've done anything magical. I'm just really good at spotting opportunities and leaning in when the time is right.
And I love that distinction, knowing that your reputation speaks for you in rooms before you even have conversations. But you know what's kind of hilarious? I was about to say thank you for your public service, for the tall girlies.
We love a 36-inch inseam.
Period. 38. That's next. Let's go. But also here today at the Washington Post Global Women's Summit, I don't know if you guys have caught and received some of these postcards. It's a beautiful exercise that is tied to your birthday, and they are basically goals that you write and check on yourself every year. And the 5 goals that you ask: what goals did you have in the past that you didn't achieve and why? What are 3 things you wish you did more of that brought you joy and aligned with your purpose? What is your vision? Vision is a key word here for your next 5 years. What needs to happen in the next 12 months? What are habits you want to create, and what are your boundaries you need to establish? So everyone can go and practice this exercise on the postcard. 3 of the questions are there, also with a link to your, a podcast shout out, which is great. How did you start this process, and how beneficial has it been for you?
Well, I wanted to let everybody know how I actually plan, because I'm so planful. And so I did this podcast, which was called Plan Your Life Like a Business, because it is my practice. And since I was just coming up to 30, I mean, it didn't start how it ended up, but it was one of these things where, I was having this like existential crisis. I'm coming up to 30. What is my life going to be like? And so I did this like now famous amongst my friends plan. It was called the 30 plan. And really the 30 plan was like everything I was going to do and I wanted to achieve in my 30s. And to get there, I had to ask all these questions. So I wrote it down, you pass it to a couple of friends because they're like, well, it's working out for you. And that's what kind of happened. And so I tried to be really honest, because sometimes I think that we can hide behind our ambition. We can get scared of the things that, we really want. And there's something about getting it down on paper, and something about admitting those things to yourself, and something about being incredibly planful that leads you in the right direction. And when you're busy, when you have a job, when you have kids, when you have responsibilities and you have parents to look after, it's easy to go off kilter. And so what I wanted to do is create like a system for myself that would allow me to be really focused and get really sharp on just a few things. And so I like to do it on my birthday, because I think about that as like my new year, like you would a New Year's resolution. But you can do it on like just a Monday, like it's the start of a new week. I just like the idea of saying, these are my goals and this is how I'm going to work towards them, because I think we're all inundated with so many obligations and so many responsibilities. And so you start to forget what's important. And let me tell you, my goals are not just professional. Like, one of my goals is to like go away with my girlfriends every single year without fail, because I'm obsessed with making memories and being really pointed about like these moments in the year, moments over time, right? Because we don't know how much time we've got. And so again, I am actually just trying to think about my life in a really holistic way and make sure what I want to happen actually happens. And that's like the genesis of starting with yourself. It's like, what do I want? And not measuring what you want by something that you saw on social or somebody else's point of view and principles. It's like, what matters to me? And let me plan my life around that.
Two follow-ups to that, okay? Going on vacation with your girlfriends absolutely needs to happen. I'm just curious really quick.
Year.
What friend are you in the girl group?
Can you imagine? I'm the not bossy one, obviously.
Do you make the plan, or are you like, take me on a ride?
Can I tell you, I visualize the plan and then I hand it over every good executive does.
I love that. 2, you spoke to your personal goals. I want to talk about maybe more of your professional goals, because you have offered bonuses to people on your team and your company that use AI. Can you describe why that is so important in this climate?
Yeah, well, I have been obsessed with everywhere that women have missed out on opportunity. And I remember being around this kind of first wave where, it was like a big push to get women to start coding. And I was like, coding? Like, how unromantic. Like, I'm totally uninterested. Turns out I should have learned it. And I just feel like we shouldn't get left behind in this next wave. And so part of my ambition is always to learn, right? So I have like an AI day a month. It's my least favorite day, I have to tell you. I'm not gonna lie and say I really enjoy it. But the point is that I want to be in the conversation. And more than that, I want every woman to be in the conversation. And so if you can be that person within your company, within your workplace, within your life, who actually starts to learn how, okay, I work in a finance department, these are the AI tools that are gonna better enable our business. This is where we're going to make savings. These are the things that actually eventually might even take over my job. But you understanding that and being part of the change and actually even being part of ushering it in, that's what I'm trying to enable, and that's what I'm trying to bonus. So I said to everybody, like, I will cut you a check if you figure out a way that you can integrate AI into your day. That was just a cheeky incentive to say, like, start looking, like, figure it out. And it really worked because people just started, you know, coming up and they'd be like, look, I've figured out this, like, gnarly system that, you know, looks at X, Y, and Z. And I think that that is really important. I don't want women to be left out of the conversation, and it's not too late. And so I think that the more we can encourage, you know, our kids, our friends, take a course, start, you know, giving ourselves a few spare hours to not just read about this stuff in the news, but really take part in it, that's gonna actually benefit us all.
And what I love about you is that including women in the conversation is not just something you do in one lane, it's something that is a part of you in every aspect, including your podcast, Aspire with Emma Grede. How has that journey been for you, going from building the business behind the scenes to now being the main event?
Well, you know, I love that you say the main event. I never think about myself like that. I mean, it's like Reese Witherspoon's on the podcast this week. I'm like, she's the main event. You know, I'm super curious, and I don't think that there's enough stories, like real, honest stories about how women specifically make things work, where we find opportunity, where we find unlocks. We don't have enough conversations about what happens when you make some money, how you invest it, how you, you know, how you get your money managed, what are the right people to, you know, if you're taking your company public, if you've got a legal situation. And so all of these things have happened to me in business, and typically I've spoken to some guy about it, and actually I think it would really benefit us to have more of those conversations openly and with truth. And I think that, again, it comes down to this idea of how much are we willing to share and where are we operating from? Because if we're operating from a place of scarcity, that's a really dangerous place. If you envisage that, you know, you're sitting at a table with a bunch of investors and you don't want to introduce your friend who has a brand because you're like, well, I need that for me. Like, that's never a good place to operate from. So in my life, I've understood that sharing and being open and making introductions and being useful and putting people together has become something that I'm really known for. And so I want to encourage other women to do that too. And the podcast is just a way to get the information out there. But I am asking the questions that nobody wants to talk about. I'm like, Reese Witherspoon, like, what'd you do with that $1 billion? Like, you sold Hello Sunshine, like, talk to me.
Where does it go?
Next? Where's it go? Like, did anybody else eat? And you know, lo and behold, when a woman actually builds a company like that and sells it for $1 billion, guess what happens? Everybody around her manages to, you know, eat too. She made a lot of people a lot of money, and all of these incredible executives that left these very high-powered jobs in Hollywood got to walk away from Hello Sunshine with a lot more that they came with. So I just feel like there is a way to operate, there is a way to tell these stories, and there's a way to share that information, because knowledge is power and we need that knowledge.
And your perspective is very solution-oriented, and I heard you previously describe your podcast, the reason why you wanted to do so, as scaling mentorship.
Yeah, and it really is. It's, you know, the idea of scaling mentorship, sharing information, but also I have a really finite amount of time, which I'm sure so many of you are. So I don't do anything unless there's an end goal there. And so for me, I want you to, like, take this 40 minutes and learn something and be able to write down and be like, oh my goodness, that's so useful to me. So I'm really trying to create this space where whatever, you know, if you're driving to work or you're, you know, doing a little workout or taking a walk in the park, you are getting something from that time that I have taken from you, essentially. And so for me, that, you know, I'm a transaction girl. It's like you give, take, like it has to be there somewhere.
And you've created so many solutions in many different avenues and different factors. And I want to sort of go through all of your projects that you have successfully launched, and they're beautiful. again, going back to Good American, where would you say that diversity, body diversity, where that conversation is now compared to where it was when you started?
Well, you know, I think that when you do anything good, it's widely copied. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that Good American had a real it had a real kind of corner in the market, and very quickly everybody was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. We should all do more sizes. And so that was really adopted in mainstream fashion. You can walk into so many high street retailers now and find like more size expansion. You can go onto any website. We were the first people to actually show you the same SKU, the same gene type on multiple different bodies. That didn't happen before Good American. And so I'm so happy when I go on a big website of a big mainstream brand and they're doing the same. I'm lucky because I think customers learned to love that brand. They learned to trust us, and we've never faltered. You know, some people went into those sizes, they decided that, you know, it's very expensive and very difficult to do, and they took a back step. And we never did. So I think that there's a love and a trust for that brand. But for me, I don't think about inclusivity or diversity as something that's like a nice to have, a box tick. It's always about business. It's always about serving a community of customers. And to do that well, you need different types of people within your organization and within your business. And so when we talk about it as more of a political issue, I'm always like, what are we talking about? This is just good business. This is just about the bottom line. And you can't do anything in business that doesn't work. And let me tell you, it works. Like, I'm living, breathing proof of that.
Yeah, and as a woman that is a representative of the WNBA, a league that is predominantly at least 80% Black women, you talk about meeting the needs of a time. I think nothing exemplifies that better than you being the chair of the 15% pledge, which has helped Black business owners generate over $10 billion in revenue.
14.
Hey, you said 14?
14.
Oh, the number's up. It's 14, Billy. Oh my gosh. And for those who may not know, the 15% pledge, Black people make up 15% of the US population. So they ask businesses to dedicate 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned brands. In a world where DEI is being threatened across industries, what would you say to aspiring Black business owners and even corporations now?
Well, you know, I think I mentioned it before. To me, this is just a question of what is good business, what makes sense. And I would say for Black founders not to be discouraged by what's happening, because there are plenty of incredible retailers that see the need, that see the appetite from consumers. And while there are outliers, you know, and we hear about the outliers in the press, so much more than we hear about the incredible brands that have stuck to their commitments. So when you think about Ulta, when you think about Sephora, when you think about Nordstrom, when you think about Macy's, there's plenty of ways that we can do business, and the rest we just won't. We won't deal with them.
Period. And what's also inspiring is that you are a board member of the Obama Foundation. And to me, that is truly inspirational because we know what climate we're in today. The political spectrum is, you know, at times chaotic and hard to, you know, wrestle with in your mind. And there are so many young people in this world that want to lead and have found different ways to lead, whether it is just, you know, doing stuff to help build their community or even just using their platforms to advocate for change. What would you say to those young people who may feel otherwise overwhelmed by the tension and the bitterness across, you know, the political spectrum today?
Well, here's what I know, and it's difficult for me to comment specifically as an English person, right? I've been in America for 8 years, and I would say once a month, somebody from my family calls me and says, "Come home, darling. Just come home." And I'm still here, so let me just tell you what I think. I believe that what I've done in the last 8 years is unfathomable and impossible in any other country but in America. And while we hear and we know what's going on and it's real, and I don't downplay it for a second, I choose to lean into what's positive and what's possible. And so I am very pro this country because I think the American dream is still live and kicking. And if you are willing to stick your neck out and to say what you believe in and to work extremely hard, this is the country to be successful in, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with everything that happens or not. And again, I am living, breathing proof of that. And so, listen, I think wherever you go in the world, it would be impossible to go to Europe right now and say, well, they've got it all figured out. Absolutely not. Any great place has growing pains and learning difficulties and is trying to figure out. And I think sometimes, you talk about this country as a great experiment. All great experiments, have sticky moments and weird parts of them. I think that I try to lean into what is great about this country, and there is plenty of that.
Completely agree. As a daughter of the diaspora, I always tell people I have the best of both worlds. I was fortunate to be raised with Nigerian blood and heritage in a Niger home. Oh, we got Niger in the house? Wait, hold on.
Oh,
do we have London in the house? Anybody?
Yes.
Oh, we got a little bit. Okay, good. Okay, we always have to represent. I say that I have the best of both worlds. I was blessed with the Nigerian spirit of hustle and determination, but boundless American opportunities. And I am grateful for that each and every day. And being Black women, I always tell the young girls that I see in basketball camps or young broadcasters, they may see you before they hear you. They may judge you before they know you, but they sure as hell cannot stop you. And that's one mindset I think transfers amongst everyone. Now, Emma, you have had probably the most iconic year, I'm not gonna lie. You're on a generational run.
It's been a good year.
It's been great. You launched your podcast. You've had several product launches. You announced the publication of your book, Start With Yourself. What most excites you about this book? Give us a little bit of it. Give us a page. Give us a page.
Give me a page. It's an opportunity for me to, to unpack all my deeply unpopular opinions, actually, in long form. Because it's really great when you say something and then that little piece is taken and then played out into something else. Listen, I think the thing that I try to do more than anything is be really honest. And I think that there is so many misconceptions around women and business and women helping other women, and I talk about what the reality of my life is like. And I think that I created this book to be something that would be useful and helpful, that you could take a piece and say, I want to think about leadership, I want to think about success, I want to think about my career, I want to think about money, I want to think about when is the right time to have a kid. And you would dive into this and find a little bit of wisdom and knowledge that is truthful and not going to gaslight and not going to tell you something that you want to hear necessarily. So I love what I've written because it's my truth, and I think it would be really, really helpful. And I think there's a lot of business books out there, but not a lot of books that are written by somebody that is self-made and a mother of 4, and I'm trying to be helpful and useful.
You have done that to the utmost degree. I know we're out of time, but I'm just curious, as someone who is so successful in 2025, what does 2026 have in store for you?
I mean, so much. I hope, when I think about what success looks like nowadays, it's hard to think about myself because what's become this, unbelievable consequence of all of the work that I've done is that you get stopped by people that say, oh my goodness, I have to tell this really quick story. I was in a restaurant the other night. This woman, she told me, it was actually six months ago, I had a call with her the other night, and she tells me, Emma, I was about to give up on my business, and I said to myself, if I get a sign before the end of the weekend, then I'll continue. You are my sign. And I was like, oh no. Please. I was like, don't let me be the sign for something you were going to shut down. Anyway, so I speak to this girl, and she's actually got a really interesting business. It's called Sophie's, and she makes these. She's the only person that doesn't heat up baby food before it goes in the little baby food container. Anyway, 6 months later, this girl is absolutely killing it. She's making really, really good money. She's got the most incredible retailers. And to me, I'm like, what is better than that? What is better than taking actually I gave her all of the things that she shouldn't do and all of the mistakes that I'd made. And you pass that on, and that's great and useful to someone. So I'm really focused on how many people could you positively impact? How many people that don't look like traditional business owners or traditional entrepreneurs and don't have the vernacular and the language to go out and raise money in the same way that I did, and could be impacted by something that I have to say. So that's the measure for me right now. Can you make 1 million little Emmas? God help us.
The world would be so much better. Your favorite mentor's favorite mentor, Emma Grede. Thank you so very much for joining us here.
Thank you, darling. This is the best. You were so good.